I'm Bob Mover, and welcome to our podcast, On the Real Side. Today's guest, I'm very happy to have one of the finest flutists and a fine composer as well, an educator uh, in the world today with us, Ms. Andrea Brachfeld. Hi, Andrea.
Hi, Bob. Thanks for asking me to do this.
Oh, it's
I'm
a
so glad
pleasure.
we reconnected.
Yeah, well, I first heard Andrea at a jam session in Jersey City that when Art Harper, the great drummer, used to run and probably still does on a Sunday afternoon. And out of the shadows came this lady playing quite a lot of flute and sounded really good. So uh, I began to talk to her, and we became acquaintances and kind of friends, and hung out a little bit together musically, and shared some ideas. And she's a wonderful musician, and like a lot of musicians, especially in New York, those that didn't get big record contracts, or like the five agents that actually book people that they believe can make them a lot of money. Um, I guess I'm like that too. We kind of get sort of put by the wayside in as far as jazz polls and the popular media and all that kind of thing. But that in no way negates actually the fact that we've been and remain, for the most part, quite active uh, musically. Like you don't necessarily need a large record company uh, to remain active. Unfortunately, to make real money, you probably do. But
That's for sure.
so that's something that Andrea has dealt with, like a lot of us. Uh, Rewards are not in proportion to the talent. In fact, a friend of mine said that there should be a category in Downbeat in the polls saying recognition deserving wider talent. But one tries not to be bitter about these things and remain, like Henry Miller said, always merry and bright.
Well,
About
that's interesting that you just said that because that's exactly what Hubert Laws wrote about me. I
really,
mean, verbatim, one of the things he said, she just should, I don't know, whatever you said, that should deserve more recognition. But why do we play? Do we play to get recognition? I don't think so. I think we play because we just love to play, you know?
yeah, I think it's more of a spiritual matter, of not knowing how to express ourselves other ways. I mean, if I could say everything I said on my horn by standing on top of a building and shouting it, that might eliminate. But there's no beauty in that. I think it has to
Right.
do with finding what's an aesthetic of what's beautiful to you, and even if you're Albert Eiler, to him, that's beautiful. It's not the quality or whether it's avant-garde or whether it's what category that people put it in.
Right.
Is in the eye of the beholder, as they say, or the ear of the beholder. So I think we have a love of what we think is beautiful and a need to express what we consider to be not necessarily pretty. Like beautiful isn't always pretty, but it's
Well,
it's
that's
it's
a subjective. That's very subjective.
right. In other words, that's why it's a very large idea of what can be beautiful. But we do it for that. I think is if somebody says, "What's your principal reason for making music?" is to express some kind of beauty that I feel inside of me that I think the world needs. And
Right.
even
Exactly. I agree.
even if there's just a few. And like I mean, these expressions. I mean, a friend of mine said I could paper the walls personally with all the times I've been called underrated. In fact, one agent that I had one time said, "You've got to take every time they say underrated in all your reviews, take it out of there because we don't want you to be thought of that way," which actually was wrong. But but um, I think, I mean, the fact that you're underrated kind of is sort of a compliment in a way. But all these things about being under the radar and all this kind of stuff, under whose radar? and it's all kind of silly. But let's get into what Andrea Brachfeld is about, starting with your childhood. Now you grew up in the New York area.
Yeah, I grew up in Spring Valley and in Rockland County, and then we moved to France for a year. And
Oh,
after that, we moved to the Village in 1969.
oh, yeah. I moved to New York in 1968 and lived in what's now the Upper West Side, and at that time was considered Lower Harlem. 91st and Broadway was not a very good neighborhood in those days. It certainly was
Right.
not what it is now. And
Yeah, I
but
was going to music and art at the time. So I did music and art for 4 years, and then I took a year off. I had tried out, I auditioned for Manhattan School of Music and I got in. And I also got a scholarship from Joe Newman's organization called Jazz Interactions to go to Berkeley School of Music. And at the time, uh, Jazz Jazz Interactions had Yusuf Lateef as the flute teacher,
oh
and Barry
wow,
Harris, and Frank Foster was there.
and Jimmy
And
Heath, right?
no, Jimmy Heath was at Jazzmobile.
Oh, okay. So Jazz Interactions was a different thing than Jazzmobile.
Yeah, Jazz Interactions was Joe Newman and
Joe and
Rigmore.
Whitmore.
He was married to Rigmore at the time. So I called up Berkeley School of Music to find out if they had a flute teacher on staff, because I knew enough at the time that I should at least learn how to play the flute. And they didn't have a flute teacher. So I decided to go to Manhattan School of Music instead.
And
And
you got
that's what
next to Harold Bennett, who was like, and Harold Bennett was considered like like the Joe Allard to saxophone. Harold
Yeah,
Bennett,
Joe Allard was there as well.
yeah, and so Harold Bennett was a good person to probably, if you want to learn flute, he would be the cat to.
And that's what happened. And, there were a lot of people there at the time. Kenny Kirkland was there. Um, Noel Pointer was there. Who else was there? Fred Hirsch was there, and they didn't have a jazz program per se. They had, um, like jazz ensembles. So I was in Dave Friedman's ensemble, and then he would call David Samuels to sub for
Right.
him when he couldn't do the gigs.
Both of
I
those
mean,
guys, if there's a generation there that doesn't know who these people were, they were both excellent vibraphone players who were very close to each other. You always
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, they
one
had they,
you found one,
and then
you found the other nearby.
Valerie Capers was there also, and Bobby Capers would come in and teach.
Who was Bobby Capers? What relation? I knew Valerie. Valerie was again to tell
Bobby
people.
Capers was an amazing alto saxophone player, jazz alto saxophone player.
Uh-huh. And
He
what
was,
happened to him?
I think he passed early.
And was he related to? Was he her brother or sister or child
Yeah,
or?
yeah, yeah. They were brother and sister.
I see. And Valerie was blind and an incredible piano player.
Oh
And
yeah, and she married John Robinson, who I went to music and art with. Um, and John Robinson was a genius. He played bass and he played recorder.
huh.
So yeah, it was a whole thing. I mean, at the time, because you were there was so much jazz happening, like all over the place. Who's a piano player? Joanne Brackeen, she was playing at the Surf Maid, making,
That was a little later, I think, in this into the 70s. That was
no, she was there in 69.
really in '69. It was
I
that
was
early.
down, I would go down there all the time. And then, there
I
was
used
the,
to play at actually I would sit in on Sunday afternoons at Jacques which was on Sullivan Street and corner of Bleecker and Sullivan. And
Right.
Kenny Barron was the piano player with Major Holly
Oh, yeah, I
on
remember Major Holly. Yeah, sure.
Major's
Yeah,
gig.
there was so much. What else? Who else? Boomers was there. I remember going to Boomers a lot. And at the
Yeah.
time, I was doing a lot of gigs with Doug Hammond.
Oh, I
He
knew
he
Doug well. We were on Mingus's band together for a little while when
yeah,
Doug wasn't on
yeah,
the
he
band.
wrote all this classical jazz stuff. And that's where I met Pat Dixon, who is now Akua Dixon, and her sister, who passed very, very early on, Gail Dixon. And there was just so much stuff going on. And that's when I started, I had my jazz band from the time I was 16. My first gig was at All Night Soul with Reverend Gensel.
Right,
And
I
then
remember Gensel.
and then the Universal Jazz Coalition with Kobe Narita, she gave me a bunch of gigs, you know.
Yeah,
So
Kobe.
I played with everybody.
Yeah, I used to go down and talk to Gensel a lot about the Bible. We would, I was flirting with Christianity at that time, uh, and wanted to know. I mean, having been raised Jewish, not really very religiously, but I had as you do too, kind of a spiritual bent, and I wanted to know about different things. And I thought that Gensel, being somebody as a person that I really respected, and that we shared this love of the music together, could explain to me what true Christianity was about. And he did a very good job of it. And I, you know, got a
Yeah,
lot of.
he was definitely a good guy. And then from there, I mean, I had Adam Nussbaum when he first came into town. He played with my band, Peter Fish, Jeff, he played bass with the Brucker brothers. Jeff,
Well, this is not the '60s. This is the
what was
'70s.
it, 70s?
Yeah, this is the '70s because Adam, I had every Wednesday night at Boomers for close to a year in 1976, 77, after I left Chet Baker. And I had Adam and I had Kenny Washington, who were both 17, 18 years old in
Right,
around 1976. They were two of the drummers that I used pretty frequently. Dennis Earlman was playing bass much of the time.
right.
And, and I had Albert Daly often on piano, who was
Yeah. Do you remember Wayne Dockery, the
very
bass player?
well. Yeah, yeah. Well, he was with
He's
Al
not around
Galper's
anymore.
band. Oh, he
What?
moved to Paris. He moved to Paris. I believe he did die a couple of years ago, but he went out to Paris with Jolie Wilson and Monty Waters and Wayne. They all were in Paris for a number of years. In fact,
Monty Waters. With Monty Waters, did he play alto sax?
he played alto.
I
Yeah,
knew him. I knew him well because when I was living in the East Village, I would hang out with him and Jolie Wilson had he had a club. What was the name of his club? The on Bond Street, I think.
yeah, it was on Bond Street. I played with Tommy Turrentine there. I was in Tommy's quintet, the Ladies' Fort.
The Ladies Fort. And then I was living right in the back of Studio Rivby with
Right,
Sam
which was Sam
Rivers.
Rivers' place
And
on.
he was doing these classical jazz things also. So I did a lot of I played a lot of music for him because he wanted to have that real flute sound.
Yeah, he
And
was a
then
hell
I
of a
got
flute
then I
player
got
too.
involved with Latin music, and you know, it gave me a lot more money and a lot more work than jazz. So I just, went in that direction.
Well, some of my first gigs when I was about 20, I came back to New York. I left New York for a couple of years and went to Boston to be next to Jackie Byard. And I didn't go to school or anything, but I just hung out with Jackie and lived at New England Conservatory, which is another story. But when I came back to New York, one of the places I used to play, I played with probably the only Latin band in the world that didn't swing. It was Chamaco Iglesias e su grande orquestra internacional, and he was from Ecuador. And it just we used to play the New York Casino and Carbohania and all of those uptown places opposite where
Oh,
they'd
yeah.
have like three bands a
I
night.
remember, I remember, I remember going up there to the Cerro Mar, which was 149th Street and 3rd Avenue, I think. I walked in and it was Ray Barretto's band, and Ruben Blades was singing, and he was singing Feelings. That was a long time ago, but I did that for, I don't know, a couple years. And then I got this gig. It was great. I was working at Sam Goody's, and I had been going to Jazzmobile a lot, like every Saturday. That's where I studied with Jimmy Heath. And oh, who's the piano player? Billy Taylor. He was the director then. And I'm working at Sam Goody's, and he's on my line, and he's like, he looked up because he was buying all these records. He said, "What are you doing here?" I said, I'm making money
This
to
is
eat
Billy
here."
Taylor. This is Billy Taylor's
Taylor. He said, "You're not
line.
supposed to be doing this. You're supposed to be playing music." And I said, "Well, I agree." So he said, "We're looking for the leader of the Afro-Cuban band." Jazzmobile just got a grant called the CETA grant, the Comprehensive Educational Training Act, and we're looking for a leader. He gave me a piece of paper with a phone number. He said, "Call them, go up, toot your flute, and you got the gig." So I ended up being the leader of this Afro-Cuban band for a year. And they also had a big band, and we would play in like senior centers and community centers. And it
Oh,
was like it was a gig on the books. It was amazing. Then I got called from this millionaire in Venezuela, and I had no idea what he was saying. He was just talking. I don't know, because I didn't speak Spanish at the time. And what I found out is he got my name from the leader of Charanga 76. And he said he wanted to create a band around me to come to Venezuela. So I was
can
like,
you,
okay,
for a minute, just explain to us what is charanga? It's a Afro-Cuban rhythm, isn't it?
no,
What?
charanga
Because
music
I
is,
don't know. I know it as a word, but I don't really know what it is.
okay, so charanga, I have a workshop on charanga music, which brought me to Cuba. So charanga music is a combination of the flute, violin, and piano. And they had, at the time that that configuration came together with the bands of Cuba, which was like in 1874, there were bands that were called orquesta típicas, and they were huge bands and they were very loud. And what happened was there was a break of two different kinds of music. So the violin, the flute, and the piano merged with a very simple rhythm section of the guido, piano, bass, congas, timbales, and two vocalists. And the other side of it, which was the cachao, was involved in the other side of the conjunto style. So there was a conjunto style and a charanga style.
Cachao, the bassist, right?
Cachao was in Arsenio Rodriguez's band,
Right.
and
He was.
Cachao
I mean,
and
people
his
don't know who
brother.
he is. So yeah.
Yeah, and then so the bands that were in Cuba at the time merged. They kind of separated into these charanga music, which was more European and a very simple, danceable kind of rhythm.
Now, somebody told
And
me something about fado. I remember because there's which also uses the violin and charanga having a relationship
Brazil, is that
with
in
each other.
Brazil?
Yeah, that well,
I
from
don't know
Portugal,
that history. I know
that
the Cuban history.
during the Spanish Inquisition, I was told this much. I want to know more about it, but I thought it was interesting that a lot of the blacks and the Jews were exiled together, and that's when they ended up in Cape Verdean, which was kind of a place that fado kind of became very strong.
Well, that Brazilian music is just beautiful, but the charanga music was more, it was very simple. And the flute that they used was the flute that the military had left in Cuba. So it was a 5-key flute, and there were no microphones. So in order for the flute to be heard, they played very, very high. And
Hmm.
that was the reason that you played such high music. And they also had two vocalists that sang in unison, and the reason they did that is because there were no microphones, so they could really hear the music. And so that became a signature of the charanga music, is of two vocalists who were, who were singing in unison, and the
And what are the
flute
words about?
violin. And
The in
what?
the vocals, what are the songs about? I'm always curious about lyrics. What are the lyrics?
Everything you can imagine, just life. Yeah, it was just life. So I ended up going to Venezuela. I thought I was going to go there for a year, I mean, a month, and I ended up being there 2.5 years. And I played with this band called La Imensa, very simple kind of traditional music. I wouldn't even call it folkloric music. It was a 25-piece band, and they usually played in unison. So it was.
Well, wait a minute. What got you to Venezuela? How did you actually end up in Venezuela? What was I don't think I
Well, the
caught.
leader of the band of Charanga 76 was, he was contacted by this millionaire who said,
Oh, right.
I want her to be in this band. So I did the band for a year. I made a lot of money. I met so many people because everybody that had a gig in Venezuela would come to, like, hang out in this one club, which was a jazz club. And eventually I got a gig playing in that jazz club. So I did that for 8 months, 6 nights a week. And then I,
Jazz. This was playing jazz as well as playing in the charanga band. But this 6 night a week gig was a
no,
jazz
no,
gig.
no, no, no. Charanga was not happening anymore. I went and played that not very um, popular music, popular Venezuelan music. And then when I left that band, I stayed in Venezuela, and I played in that jazz club, the Juan Sebastian Bar, for 8 months, 6 nights a week. And I was doing recordings, I was doing like TV recordings and radio, and it was cool. And then I don't know, it didn't feel right to be there anymore. And I was like,
Didn't you get married and become a mother? Didn't you have a child in that period, or am I?
yeah, but not in Venezuela. I mean, we left, and I had my child in New York City.
And your husband was, or the man was a Venezuelan man, or
Yeah, he was Venezuelan. So I moved back to the States, and the economy in Venezuela just completely plummeted. So it was a good move. And I kept, doing my gigs, and he did his gigs, but it wasn't enough. So I eventually decided to go back to school, and I got my master's in education. And so I did that for 26 years.
this was back in New York?
Well, I was
So
in Jersey by then, yeah.
you were in where? In Jersey by then.
Jersey.
But
And then
you taught school. What, well, for 26 years? You went to school. You taught school. What did you do? You
I
just
taught school for 26 years. I ended up being an ESL and bilingual teacher.
English as a second language and bilingual teacher. I see.
Yeah.
So
So then
Spanish.
I was still playing, so I was producing all these records on my own because I had the money to do it. And you know how the music business is. One thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. So I ended up working with Wallace Roney. He had a big band called the Universe Orchestra, and he got the music. Wayne Shorter gave him the music that Wayne had written for Miles when Miles and Wayne broke up. And so we played that music, we recorded the music, we played it at a bunch of festivals.
Yeah, I was actually at Wallace's house one day. He invited me to make a rehearsal with that band. One afternoon, I went over. I just remember a lot of pizza boxes in his house. He had
Yeah, there were a lot of pizza
a lot of
boxes.
pizza boxes at McDonald's. And,
Yeah.
Wallace, I knew Wallace when he was a teenager. He was one of my Berkeley, I taught at Berkeley for 3 semesters before Chet Baker called me and said, "You're too young to be out to pasture," and had me come to Europe with him. But Wallace was one of my Berkeley students, and also we played in a band with a guy named Art Matthews called Art Matthews had this quintet with Alan Dawson, and Wallace was 18 years old and didn't sound like Miles then. He was right in between Clifford Brown, Miles, and Kenny Dorham, and
Nice.
and it was
Yeah, that was great. I mean, I got to know Buster and Lenny and a whole bunch of people. So that was really great. And then yeah, so fast forward to today, in about a month I'm going to be playing in Paris, and then I'm going to Spain to play. It's the first time I'm playing in Paris under my own name.
yeah. You played at the Sunset. You told me. I remember the. I knew the Sunset very well. Yeah,
Yes.
and
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing a lot of stuff. I've put 10 records out. And my group in New York is Bill O'Connell, Harvey S., and Jason Tiemann. And we did a whole bunch of gigs, and I got a couple of grants from Chamber of Music America. So we were able to do, a bunch of good gigs.
yeah. Well, I
And
was reading that you have a very interesting way of composing with Bill O'Connell. Bill O'Connell's a hell of a piano player. I think I played with him very briefly. He may have subbed 1 or 2 nights with Chet Baker long time ago, but I knew him with Clifford Jordan. I heard him play with Clifford Jordan, and it was just beautiful. And he's a wonderful musician. And I was, listening to this little thing on your website where the band talks a bit about you. The band is called Insight, right?
right, yeah.
And and they mentioned that you've got an interesting kind of compositional technique, which you and Bill have almost a telepathic type of communication with
Yeah,
each other.
yeah, it's kind of interesting. I guess it was in 2017 when I got that first grant from Chamber of Music America. Um, He was like, you play such great melodies, and I do the harmony. Why don't you focus on the melody, and I'll focus on the harmony, then we'll come together and see what we can do. So I started doing like what do they call that? Where it's just playing stream of consciousness.
Through consciousness, yeah.
So I just started doing like stream of consciousness composing, which is actually the way I compose. I start playing and then sing, and then, like a melody comes out, or a melody might just like come to me. And then Bill and I would get together. He'd say, "Well, what do you think about this chord?" "Oh, it's okay. Make it darker." "What do you think about this chord?" "I don't know. Do something else." And we've done some really amazing. I mean, we've had a lot of fun doing it. So that's something that I always look forward to. I'm hoping that the next record that I do is going to be all ballads. I really want to do ballads.
Yeah, what's your favorite song? I mean, I don't mean
Right
one, but
now,
what
right
song?
now, my favorite song is "What's New."
Uh-huh.
You know
These
that tune?
days. Oh, of course, I know that too. I'm sorry, I've been playing that tune since I was 15.
Yeah,
Um,
I also like "My Ship."
that's beautiful too. My latest tune that I've been learning that I really never, I kind of slept on this is a great song called Something I Dreamed Last Night.
Oh, I don't know that tune. I'll have to learn it.
Song. Yeah. And anyway, that's been my latest. I'm always got something I'm chasing, but um, yeah. Well, I mean, there's just some beautiful, a lot of wonderful songs out there, and my daughter asked me to put 100 songs together that I like to play, and I started to
Mhm.
write down songs, and I've got 600 songs now.
Yeah, that's great. So
that I
back in October, I was having a conversation, actually, probably it was in June. I was having a conversation with Hubert because I studied with him and I kept in touch with him. And he was doing a gig up in New York. And I said, well, why don't you come down to Baltimore? He's like, well, what's in Baltimore? I said, the Keystone Corner. So now he comes like a couple times a year to the Keystone Corner. And whenever he comes, I play with him.
because you've been living down. We could say that, right? That you've kind of relocated down to Baltimore because
Yeah,
your
sure.
family, daughter's down there, and after
Yeah.
many years in the Jersey area, New York area.
Actually, no, I've got a gig at Moore's this Friday.
Oh,
So I'm going back up there. And then I go on my tour in October. No, in September, September 21st.
and you're going to play with Kirk
So
Lightsey, which is
Kirk
wonderful.
Lightsey and Frank Ansalem, Gilles Naturel, and Bernd Reiter, I think his name is.
Oh, tell Gilles Natural hello from me. We played
I
quite a bit of
will.
songs together. He,
Yeah.
now I also in your band Insight, I read that there's it's quite eclectic the kind of things you're playing. Like you were playing, it said everything from Bacca pygmy music to Shlomo Karlbach, and so you have quite a wide variety of influences uh, in that music. And
Yeah, what I did is we started recording we started recording before the pandemic. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to have a record that highlighted the different parts of the world that needed to have some light on the world. So the Baka Forest people, the incorrect name is the Pygmies, but they are an incredibly musical oriented
now, is
people.
this Australia? Is this where they are? Where
No,
is
they're
the
in
Baka?
Africa. They're in
Okay, I didn't know
Africa.
where the Baka pygmies are.
Yeah, they're in Africa. And the Hut song that we recreated was about young women and just women in general who would go to the hut when they had their periods. And the music that I heard online was so beautiful, like multi melodies, multi rhythms. And so we recreated it with four flutes and also, put it in the jazz kind of, vibe. And then the Shlomo, the co-rabbon, I was at my nephew's Shabbat dinner and he sang this song and it was so beautiful that I did some research and we put it into a jazz waltz. And it made sense because I wanted to focus on the East. This was before all the Gaza things. I mean, that's been going on for thousands of years anyway, but
Before
um,
the thick of it, which is what we're in now.
yeah. So, that's how I began the record. We recorded four tunes. And then, and I also recorded a Native American tune, which was just beautiful, just absolutely gorgeous from the Inuit Indians in Canada. But then the pandemic happened and we recorded half a record. We didn't have the other half of the record. And so the other half of the record was like really different from the first part of the record. So it was like, oh, what do I do now? So I kind of put the record together and I thought, well, what can I name it? And I thought, well, it evolved, so I'll call it Evolution.
Hmm.
So that's what I did.